Welcome to the collection of the wildest and craziest AITA Reddit stories of all time. From wild betrayals to shocking twists, these tales will leave you questioning who is really in the wrong. Let's dive in together. The first story for this collection is from otherwise-minute-248. AITA for not wanting my girlfriend's parents at our lesbian wedding. I'm a girl, and my girlfriend is also a girl. We've been together for a long time and have talked about how our wedding will go. We've talked about all the people we're going to invite and she obviously plans on inviting her parents. I get her since it's a normal and maybe the right thing to do, but I've never felt comfortable around them. When we had met, we were both over the phone and both in a terrible mental state. I had struggled with major depression, and so did she. She was never allowed to talk to strangers on the phone because of her parents' strict rules, which I can understand, but we still talked anyway. Before we met in person, we had spent all of our time talking on the phone. She had to take care of her 5 other siblings because her parents had worked all the time, and it made her mental health worse. I was there for her the whole time. We had terrible sleeping schedules, but a rule in her house was that nobody was allowed to take naps during the day. I didn't understand that rule, considering her siblings were very young. Ages 1, 3, 4, 7, and 9. That was one of the first reasons why I didn't like them. All of them were homeschooled, including my girlfriend, so they were always at home. Every single day besides the weekends, she was forced to wake up at 7 a.m. and watch all of her siblings until around 6 p.m. She was exhausted most of the time and very stressed out, and she would always tell me how she couldn't do it anymore and she just wanted to quit. Whenever her siblings would break something, make a mess, or do something wrong, they wouldn't get the blame or get lectured. It would be her. Her mom had hit her and yelled at her. Her siblings would get a small slap on the wrist, and that was it. Her mom was very different from her dad, though. Her dad suffers from very bad anger issues, and she always tried to stay on his good side. It would be her mom lecturing her most of the time, but when her dad was the one lecturing her, it would be the worst. He would verbally abuse her, make her shake and scare her for the rest of the night. Her dad is not a good person. I don't want him at my wedding because of what he's done to her. One time, he assaulted her in front of her whole entire family, including extended, while they were on vacation, taking off her clothes and spanking her in front of everyone. Nobody did anything because they thought it was a normal thing to do. There was another time where he had waited until she got out of the shower just to spank her. He also has views that we both disagree with. He doesn't believe in transgender people, believes in politicians that clearly don't like LGBTQ people, and overall, just very right-wing views. While everyone has the right to believe what they want, I don't feel comfortable around someone who believes in those things. My best friend is transgender, and I plan on inviting him to our wedding, and I don't want someone there who could harass him. Their relationship has gotten better over time, and she may forgive them for what they've done. But I can't forgive them for it, because I was the one there for her, as she cried and wanted to give up. I've told her that if they're invited, I just can't host a wedding. We'll just get the paperwork done, and that'll be it. I don't want my best friend to be uncomfortable. I don't want to remember the biggest day of my life as a day where I was uncomfortable the whole time, and I feel like I'd start an argument with them if they showed up, considering they were never there for her when she was at her lowest. Why be there when she's at her best? There are many things I could go on about when it comes to them, but I wanted to point out the things that bothered me most. OP is not the AH for not inviting her girlfriend's parents. Her girlfriend's parents were abusive and neglectful, and their presence would make OP and others uncomfortable. Setting boundaries for a safe and joyful wedding is justified, especially given their harmful past actions. So, not OP, rather, OP's girlfriends. Parents are AHs, and I would rate them 3.5 out of 5 on the AH scale, and OP gets nothing. Let's now jump onto the next story from TM_tiring-7, AITA for ending a friendship?
I, 26, have been friends with this guy, 25, let's call him Tom, since undergrad, but things have been weird for the last 2 years. For context, we have a lot in common: race, professional goals, etc. And we've been compared a handful of times or mistaken for one another. We were relatively close in college because we had the same friend group and had overlapping schedules. However, things took a turn when Tom was flirting with me. I may be reading into it too much, but y'all can decide for yourselves. He slid up a few times on my gym pictures and complimented my figure. He drunkenly grabbed onto my thigh and nuzzled up to me. I let it happen since he threw up and was having a bad night. I just ignored these things until they stopped happening. Fast forward to one night out in which I run into Tom's friend at the bar. I've never talked to this person in my life, so I was taken by surprise when he grabbed me by the shoulder and said, "Are you Tom's friend?" "Yeah, you are. You don't know me, but I know enough about you. We're not going to be friends, so let's leave it at that." I was left speechless for a moment. What did Tom say to this guy that would warrant that kind of statement? I toil with this for a while and decide to ask about it during the next hangout. A week later, the friend group meets up and we take turns catching up on each other's lives. I go last because I was chowing down on food. I only planned on speaking about two things, and since the bar incident was a little heavy/confrontational, I decided to start with a lighter topic. I tell the group about a guy I've been talking to from Tinder, and I whip my phone around to gasps from two of my friends. Tom speaks up first and says he dated him in the past, and another friend said she did as well. Tom tells us how horrible he is, and I immediately get the ick and stop talking to the Tinder guy. However, a week later, Tom texts me and says he reached out to the guy after our lunch to get closure. I support him in this decision, but he then tells me they are going on dates after a few days. Fast forward a month, and I'm hosting a wine. The topic of past relationships gets brought up, and I bring up the only ex I have regrets about. Let's call him Jose. Tom says, "Oh, I dated Jose," which is news to me because we don't have the same taste in men. I ask how did the relationship go, but he doesn't disclose anything or tell me anything about Jose that I didn't just state to the group. This leaves me feeling put off by Tom, so I stop talking about relationships around him. Fast forward to our senior year 6 months later. Tom and I don't really text or hang out outside the friend group. One day I get a message from him asking for help with reviewing grad school applications, and I happily help out. I give detailed suggestions on what to edit, and I help him practice for interviews after he receives invitations. More time flies by, and I decide to let past incidents go. I reach out to Tom a few times to get coffee or food, but I'm always met with, "For sure, I'll let you know when I'm free." I'm saddened by this, but still try to plan one-on-one hangouts. My last attempt was beginning of fall of this year. Throughout our friendship, Tom has an on and off relationship with this demonic twink that he met through our mutual friend. The first breakup was ugly, and we obviously supported him and ostracized the demon twink. This cycle repeats until he tells us that he can handle a purely sexual relationship. Tom wants to be in a monogamous relationship. I still feel anger towards the twink because he doesn't learn from his mistakes and keeps hurting Tom. However, Tom loves to invite the demon whenever we go out. I confront Tom about this and ask what does he want from me when the demon is in my presence. I am told to do whatever I want and he can handle it. Okay. Fast forward 3 months later to Tom's birthday this year. Half his guest list can't make it, so I try to be more cheerful and excited to compensate. He tells me that my presence is appreciated and that he knows he can always count on me. We hug and head to the club with a few others. Later that night, he invites the twins to join us. I ignore the demon. I don't make eye contact or acknowledge his presence whatsoever. And this gets me a mean look from Tom and a cold shoulder for the rest of the night. A few weeks later, we go see a concert together, and lo and behold, Jose and the demon are there. I briefly tried to reconnect with Jose for the first time in years this summer, but it didn't go anywhere. I kind of curled up into a ball after seeing him there, and my friends check in on me. Tom catcalled Jose while this was going on, but realized I was upset afterwards. He kept asking if that's. Actually, and he swears he thought Jose was a stranger. Jose looks basically the same, just a little skinnier and with better hair now. I pull back from Tom after this. This was a month ago, and I don't know what to do from here. It's just complicated because we're in the same friend group. I feel conflicted because I don't think friendships are supposed to be so frustrating.
AITA?
OP is not the ending friendship with his friend who repeatedly disrespected OP's boundaries, engaged in questionable behavior, and showed inconsistency in their friendship. OP tried to maintain the relationship, but friendships shouldn't be exhausting, and in this case, it was. So ending it is justified for OP's well-being and peace of mind, and OP is not an and I would rate OP 0 and OP's friend 2.5 out of 5 on the scale. Let's now jump on to the next story from Ging Kid. AIT for not giving my children their Christmas gifts from their aunt. During our childhood years, my sister, 37F, and I, 35F, were not close at all. One example of our relationship. She came out one night to ask if I was going to make dinner anytime soon because she was hungry. Single parent, attended night college classes when we were in our teens. I hadn't made dinner yet because I was sick with the flu and was resting on the couch. She didn't understand what the problem was. After moving out for college, I was in a toxic friend group and was less than nice to my sister for a time. She was also married to a total douchebag and chose him in fights over her own family. It was, in my opinion, a mutual dislike at this point in time. When her husband had cheated on her again, we went out to lunch, and we had a frank conversation about her needing to put herself first and stop making so many excuses for the guy. I thought it was a huge turning point in our relationship. In 2021, we haven't lived in the same state in nearly 10 years, and we don't see each other a ton during this time. She gets engaged to a new partner. She asks me to be MOH, and I accept. I remind her that I'm giving birth to my second in early 2022, so my newborn and husband probably won't travel with me and my older child for the fall wedding. Fine, or so I thought. A few days after I give birth to my second, I'm FaceTiming with her and my mom for my mom's birthday. The baby is crying, my older one is crying, and I'm crying. 7 days postpartum, of course I'm crying. She sends me this long text saying, I know it's just the hormones and I understand what you're going though, and similar sentiment but in a way where she was telling me how I felt. She's never been pregnant or given birth, so it felt so condescending. My husband was even appalled. I sent her back a message and pointed out that no, she doesn't know what I'm going through, and please don't tell me how I'm feeling. She uses this as an example of me being mean to her. A few months later, we have another fight. I can't remember about what right now, but she doesn't respond until a week later when she sent some weird masturbation joke at like 10 p.m. We have a 4-month-old and a 3-year-old. I haven't slept in years. I tell her that it's an inappropriate joke and please don't text stuff like this late at night. Do not disturb was all or nothing at this time, so I often didn't use it but do now. I thought that was that, but she says that me asking her to not send stuff like this late at night is mean.
We have a huge conversation on the phone where she's telling me that she's afraid to talk to me because I'll get mad at her. Because I was mean to her when I was a sophomore in college, and ever since, she's afraid of me. I then make intricate envelopes for her wedding invitations. I had already agreed to it, and didn't have a choice but to uphold my agreement, and even address and mail out her invites. She never even acknowledged my work to thank me. I point this out to her because I'm heartbroken. I went to the wedding, everything was fine, and then things were where they always were. An occasional text, a possible sighting on FaceTime. Nothing important. Then a few weeks ago, my mom starts telling me that my sister has started having panic attacks. Because of me. And when my mom asks questions, my sister starts screaming and crying and saying that I'm abusive to her. Edit to add, she says that I kept her from going away to college. She's a grade older than me. She chose not to go. She says that I kept her from being in theater club. Not only did she never express interest, she had a full 2.5 years to join before I did. So, she's gone no contact with me. And honestly, it's the biggest relief. I finally feel like the reign of terror is over. I did choose to block her because I couldn't stand the thought of ever seeing her name pop up on my phone. And then we get to today. My mom flew up to spend Christmas with my husband, our kids, and my in-laws. My mom tells me, "Oh yeah, the gifts from your sister to the girls are getting here tomorrow." So, my sister, who has gone no contact with me, who has never met my second child, who walked away from a FaceTime with my older daughter, I didn't mention above because this is already so long, is sending gifts? I have chosen to not give them to my kids. I don't want anything from her. She doesn't get to hate me for my whole life and then decide she wants to send my kids gifts. She's a stranger to them. My mom sees my point, but she's clearly disappointed. Am I the for not giving my gifts to my kids? OP is not the AH for not giving my children their Christmas gifts from her sister. OP's sister went no contact, yet still wants a presence in OP's children's lives. OP has the right to set boundaries and protect her kids from a toxic, inconsistent relationship, even if it disappoints OP's mother. So, hear not OP. Rather, OP's sister is an AH, and I would rate her 2.5 out of 5 on the AH scale, and OP gets nothing. Let's now move on the next story from Quiet-Definition-268. My boyfriend invited his mom for 2 weeks without talking to me. So, my boyfriend unofficially started living with me soon after we started dating. He was coming out of a toxic living situation, and there was a lot of conflict at first, but we moved past it. I think it's important to note that I was the one who initiated the conversation about him moving in. He basically lived at my house, because I wanted him there, for many months before I asked him to start contributing financially. He was getting back on his feet, and I had the financial stability at the time. Before this, his mom was coming to visit from Canada, who he doesn't see often. She is pretty low income, and there was conversation about her staying at a hotel because he didn't really have a place. I said she was more than welcome to stay at my place to save money. I'd never met her before, and she wasn't the best house guest. She's sweet as pie, but just a bit inconsiderate/not reciprocal IMO. He paid for everything for her, and I often was left paying for my own stuff, and I lent her my TV for the afternoon and had to ask for it back after multiple days. My main issue was she, without telling me, went to see his ex, who my boyfriend essentially cheated me on in the beginning of the relationship and caused a bunch of issues, which his mom is aware of, after staying at my house for a week. He frames this as her being a woman of her word, because she told the ex she would, but I see it as quite disrespectful. Anyway, fast forward, we've worked through a ton of issues, have a wonderful relationship in a lot of ways, and he contributes over half because he is the financially stable one now. I've been in a doctoral program this whole time. We established that his mom is coming for Christmas, which I have no problem with, because it's his home too. I ask a couple times when she's coming, and for how long. He says he forgets the exact dates, but she'll be here for less than a week, and I won't hardly see her, because I'm going out of town. I think perfect, no stress on my end. Well, he tells me yesterday that she'll be here tomorrow because she's coming early. Because of course he's not going to tell her no. Is that a problem? He had known for over 24 hours she was coming early? I have an emotional reaction, realize I will not be able to respond, instead of react and decide to end the conversation and call back after reflecting. I talk to my friend, my therapist, meditate, and craft a response that says, I'm feeling really anxious about the ambiguity of the situation. Know myself well enough to know that it will cause stress, and can we have a convo about it? He loses his shit, says I'm being controlling, and he shouldn't have to ask permission for his mother to stay at his house. After a 3-hour conversation where he calls me among other names, I tell him this is ridiculous, and I expect him to ask his mom for dates immediately. At the end of the night, he tells me she isn't leaving till after the new year, over 2 weeks. I just straight up said no, she needs to leave by Monday. In hindsight, I shouldn't have said that and should have instead tried to reopen up the conversation. But at this point, I felt like my feelings/needs weren't important at all, and there was no reasoning/conversating with this man. Just as a little additional background, I just finished a semester of graduate school that was brutal, I have yet to get a break, I'm going home to see my family, which can be an intense dynamic, and I'm already very protective of my space. His mom has stayed longer than any friend or family member has ever stayed at my house. On top of that, because I'm in school and work from home giving therapy, which is confidential, and no one can be there while I'm giving therapy, this makes it very complicated. I spend 90% of my time in our home, and it's my safe space. On the contrary, when my family visits, he leaves almost the entire time to work from his truck. To be clear, his mom coming is not the issue, and has never been an issue. It is his lack of communication. But more so, I think the part I'm struggling with the most is not that he was deceptive about how long she was coming for by withholding the dates, or his piss-poor planning springing a guest on me for 2 weeks who I hardly know, but how he responded when I expressed concern about the situation, stating I should suck it up, I'm being selfish, I have no right to feel this way, and that he shouldn't have to have a conversation about this with me because it's annoying and I'm too sensitive. Is there something I'm missing? AITA? OP is not the AH. Her boyfriend disrespected her boundaries and dismissed her valid concerns. A shared home requires mutual decision-making, and his hostile reaction, calling her names, shows a lack of respect and emotional maturity. So such behavior, OP is an AH, and I would rate OP's boyfriend 3.5 out of 5 on the AH scale, and OP gets a 0. Let's now jump onto the next story from Gen's Booty Cheeks. AITA for icing out my parents and grandma? I'm a teen living in my parents' house, and my grandmother has been staying with us recently. Obviously, this is not a problem, but it's getting to be a problem because of the mistreatment of me and my sister by them and my grandmother. We are made to clean the house every day, expected to cook the same thing every day, and bend to my parents' every whim. My parents equate human value with ability to clean. Obviously, a house shouldn't be a pigsty, but my parents won't even let our house look lived in. Ever since they got their fancy house built, it has to be cleaned every day and look like a flipping show home. My dad threatens to beat me and my sister to death whenever he thinks that we're not keeping up with expectations. The other day, my dad started screaming at me and my older sister because we weren't being socially successful and academically successful. By socially successful, he means cleaning his house every day. He said that we weren't helping out with the butcher my parents own, that we had forgotten about my mother's birthday, weren't cleaning our rooms, and we were useless compared to my older cousin, who we will call McDonald McGee. I go to the butcher every weekend. My parents don't even pay me for the work I do. I do 5-hour shifts during exam season alongside the 2 hours that I spend cleaning their house. I never forgot about my mother's birthday, but I couldn't afford a present. Do you know why? Do you know why? Because my parents don't pay me. I texted my dad for weeks about my mother's birthday. I even made a group chat without my mother for surprise reasons, and I was the only one who texted on it. I do clean my room, and on the incredibly rare times that I don't. Do you know why? Academic obligations and cleaning the rest of the house. I don't normally build myself up like this, but after months of this, I can confidently say that I am the only one contributing to this household. I cook and I clean. I clean, and the house is spotless. Even my sister told my grandma that I was the only one cleaning because I am. Hearing myself be slandered, be called lazy and useless, having the same expectations shouted at me that I had been following for years now, I just broke down crying. I genuinely have not cried so hard in my entire life. I just remember sobbing into my hands and never stopping until it had been hours and my fingers were wrinkled from my tears. Lol. Nobody even cared is what makes it very funny. My sister came to check up on me, and she told my parents and grandma that it was unfair how I was treated, and they ignored her LMAO. But what really pushed me over the edge is the fact that my mother the other week came home pissed. I was cleaning at about 11 p.m. because she only told me and my sister to clean the whole house at 10 p.m. and she came home and started screaming at me, telling me to do this and that. And my dad came home, and I was cleaning when I could hear them talking about me. Even typing this now is making me tear up LOL. They were talking very loudly saying I'm useless and don't clean up after myself, that I'm not going to be anything in life if I don't listen to what they say to me. I went to bed for school the next day feeling terrible, and I heard my dad complain about me not saying goodnight. My mother told me I'm not allowed to eat any of my grandma's cooking. She's the only one who cooks because my parents bring home food I don't know how to cook. I have confidence in my abilities, but beef bones? Oh, why can't you cook beef bones, Marty? Oh, you want spaghetti for dinner? But what about the precious beef bones? You're making chicken wings? Oh, no, no, no. Beef bones may take 8 hours to steam and taste like hot spinach juice, but you can't have anything else. Beef, night after night after night. You want me to pop to Aldi to get some other food to eat? But why can't you eat beef bones? Spaghetti and meatballs. But what about beef bones and spinach stew? Beef bones gave us life. Beef bones is our Lord and Savior. Beef bones can do no wrong. A month straight. Beef bones and spinach. What do you mean you want it with rice? Ha 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 ha. Rice is just a pipe dream, kiddo. Have some more setza. As you can see, I'm getting sick of this. So, I said, okay. And the day after, I'm making myself some udon noodles, relishing in the fact that it's not fricking beef bones and spinach stew, and I ring my mum to ask if I can cook the noodles. You know what she says? Of course. Why can't you? You don't ask to eat food. Eat whatever. Help yourself. I'm aggravated because she's acting like she wasn't calling me useless the day before, but I decide to just sigh and eat my noodles. My mum and my grandma get home from the butcher's. By this time, my udon is finished, and I feel a tad hungry. They offer me food. I say yes. What do you think they put on my plate? We haven't spoken in a while. This is getting long, so I'll cut it off here. OP is not the AH. She was overworked, unappreciated, and emotionally mistreated. Her parents and grandma exploit her while dismissing her exhaustion, and for this behavior, OP's parents are AHs. And I would rate them 2.5 out of 5 on the AH scale. OP's icing her parents out is a justified response to ongoing neglect and verbal abuse. As for OP, she is not an AH, and I would rate her 0 out of 5 on the AH scale. Let's now jump on to the next story from Powerful Meringue _38. AITA for dropping my best friend. This is going to be a long post. I, 30F, had been friends with my previously best friend, 28F, since graduate school where we grew very close. We hung out almost every weekend with her husband and my fiancé. We grew even closer when she became pregnant. Had her baby then. A few months later, I became pregnant. We were both excited to be moms together, and naturally had talked about parenting-related topics. Because she was pregnant and had a baby before me, I followed her lead on a lot of things, because honestly, I didn't know any better when I was newly pregnant. Such as, she formula fed, so I decided that's what I wanted to do. Because I didn't want to deal with breastfeeding. There were other things that came up like circumcision, daycares, etc. There were a lot of things I talked with about her that I thought I wanted, but later changed my mind after researching more and talking it out with my fiancé. You see, my fiancé and I had differing opinions on certain things, like circumcision and breastfeeding. He said ultimately, it's my choice whether I breastfeed or not, and wouldn't pressure me to do anything, but at least wanted me to do research on the benefits and consider it. Same thing with circumcision. And please, this post is not causing confrontation. I'm not looking to debate on these choices. I just feel they are pertinent to the story, so I am including certain topics. So long story short, after doing a ton of research and talking with doctors, we chose to not circumcise our son. I was talking to my friend about some of our choices, and I told her about the circumcision, and that I would also try breastfeeding now because I wanted to just try to see if I like it, and she was very taken back. She made some hurtful comments such as my kid's going to be made fun of for not being circumcised, and she would never do that to her child. Later that evening, she apologized, but things weren't really the same after that. Another thing was that we planned on our son attending a daycare center, but our neighbors recommended an older lady in our neighborhood who does in-home care, and my fiancé really wanted us to consider her. At first, I was hesitant and expressed this to my friend, but after meeting the babysitter, We instantly fell in love and wanted our son to go there. She's like a grandma type, and I knew he would be cared for and would get more attention there versus a center. She didn't agree with this idea because I think she thought we were bashing daycare centers, which her son goes to, and also made some judgmental comments about us choosing an in-home provider. After that, things really changed. There were things that happened in my life, such as my mom passing away, the delivery of my son, and I was taken back because she wasn't really there for me during those times at all. I suffered from postpartum depression and felt really alone during my maternity leave at times, and just felt like my best friend should have been there for me. About a month after my mom died, I decided to message her straight up and ask what is going on with us. And that's when she said that she needed to take a step back from our friendship because she felt like my fiance was walking all over me and was bullying me into making decisions that I didn't want, and she didn't know what to do about it, and that she was excited to parent with me and thought we would be similar parents, but now that's changed. I told her that's not the case at all with my fiance, and while yes, we had different views on some things, he didn't bully me or make me change my mind on anything. We had a talk like grown-ups, weighed the pros and cons, and talked to medical professionals. While yes, we ultimately made some choices that he was advocating for, I made the choice that I wanted to make, and I am not too proud to admit when I am wrong, or am acting close-minded. After all of that, we came back together and made a mutual decision. I told her while at first I didn't want to breastfeed and I wanted to circumcise my son. Since then, I opened my mind and did more research and ultimately changed my mind, and that's okay. And looking back, I am so happy I made the choices I did. She continued to make it about her and basically said she needed a break. At first, I understood and wanted to try to make amends. We decided to try to meet up in person and talk it out further, and I left the ball in her court to text me when she wants to get together. Weeks go by, and I heard nothing from her. I pondered over the conversation I had with her, and the more I thought about it, the more annoyed I was, and I just decided that I don't even want to be friends with someone like that who's so judgmental just because someone has different views, and I would rather have no friends than be friends with someone I can't have an open conversation with. So, I decided to disinvite her from my son's birthday party and asked her to step down as MOH. Since then, I have seen some passive-aggressive Facebook posts, which I'm pretty sure are about me. And to be frank, this person is the kind of person to act pretty immature and naive in general, and she has a new BFF every few years, so I can't say I'm surprised. But I just want to know, AITA? OP is not the AH. Her friend was judgmental, dismissive, and unwilling to accept differing parenting choices. A true friend respects personal decisions. OP tried to mend things, but the friend distanced herself, making it reasonable for OP to move on. Underscore all over the place. My sister and I don't talk anymore, all because of a Christmas gift. AITA? I, 30F, have never posted on Reddit before, so I apologize if I don't do all the formalities correctly. I tried posting this with all the text receipts, but it was immediately taken down, so I'm trying again. Backstory. At our family Christmas last year, Dad, siblings, and significant others hit the fan. It all started when my husband, 28M, opened a gift from my sister, 22F. Let's call her Amy. It was a drink shaker. He had asked for a specific one because the one we had doesn't work very well. Well, she ended up ordering the one we already had instead. No big deal. He thanked her for the gift and didn't say anything about it. After all the gifts were done, it was just Amy, her boyfriend, and I in the living room. I decided to ask if maybe we could swap out the shaker for the other one, since we already have the one she got us. Pretty reasonable request, or so I thought. I told her that my husband would never say anything, because he doesn't do any sort of confrontation, and he didn't even say anything to me about it. She didn't seem bothered by the request at all, and just said that we would figure it out. Fast forward to a bit later in the evening. I'm not going to go into too much detail, because it was pure chaos, and honestly, would need to be a whole other post itself. Completely unrelated to the shaker situation, some words were exchanged, and a yelling match/fight broke out, mostly non-physical. My husband immediately grabbed our son, 6 months old at the time, and went upstairs to get him away from the situation and turned on some Ms. Rachel to drown out the noise. My 2 other nephews, who were 6 months and almost 2 at the time, were down there the whole time, unfortunately. Amy decided to yell, "F all of you, I'm done," and stormed out. Later in January, after everything had calmed down, I decided to text Amy and ask if we could exchange the shaker before the return window closed. She went off on me out of nowhere. I'll paste a few quotes in here from the conversation. I will admit that my immediate reaction was to defend myself instead of apologizing for hurting her feelings. But even after I did apologize, multiple times, she was saying things that were intentionally hurtful and mean. Me. "Hey, so is it still going to be okay if y'all return the shaker for something else?" Another sister actually had already got him the shaker that was on his list. She just hadn't given it to him yet, lol. Her. "Sure, I guess. I think it's rude how you approached me on Christmas Day. It made me want to never buy another gift for either of you. I'll return it and just give you money, since my gift wasn't good enough, clearly." I then got a bit defensive and explained how I didn't think it was rude to ask, because I do it with my other sister all the time, and that she literally told me during the gift exchange she didn't like a pair of shoes that I got my nephew, so that I could return them and get him something else he would actually wear. I also said, I never said it was crappy either. It's a nice gift. I just know he won't use it. I also never said it wasn't good enough. I just said he already has the exact same one. I told her I wouldn't do it again, and didn't realize it was going to make her this upset. She goes on to say how it was for me to make her feel her gift wasn't good enough, and said, "I still have your gift under the tree because it came in late, it's a game, so I hope it's good enough for you too." I apologized, again, and said I wouldn't ever do it again. But I had to keep repeating that no one said her gift was bad. We just already had that exact same one. And she isn't a random person, she's my sister. So I felt like we were close enough for this not to be a big deal. She said she was done talking to me and putting up with my... Never once had I cussed at her or said anything to hurt her. Just explaining why, I thought it was a reasonable thing to ask, and consistently reminding her that it wasn't that the gift was bad or we didn't like it. We just already had the same exact one and didn't need another one. After I apologized one more time, she sent this. "We've never done that with each other. I would have rather kept my money instead. I'll return it, but I'll get y'all the bare minimum starting this year. Maybe we can do Secret Santa so I don't have to buy you a gift at all." Me. "It's fine that you're upset. You're allowed to have your feelings. But I'm also allowed to explain why I did it. I apologized, but I also explained why I didn't think it was rude and how I feel as well. I'm also not cussing at you or being mean in any way, just explaining myself so you understand where I was coming from." Me again. "No one said your gift was crappy. All I said was, he won't use it because he already has that exact same one just in case. You'd rather get him something he will use. Like I said though, I won't do that again, and I'm sorry it upset you. I know now, and while I appreciate you telling me it upset you, I would appreciate if you wouldn't put words in my mouth or treat me like crap just because I was honest with you." She ended the conversation by telling me to have a good life. I will say I probably should have just stopped responding way before I did, but the older sister pride in me definitely clouded my judgment. About a week later, she sent me another text telling me she was basically cutting me off, which is fine because I was planning on doing the same. Anyone who thinks it's okay to speak to someone you supposedly love the way she does isn't someone I want around my children. This isn't a one-time thing. She has spoken to all of us this way many times. We haven't spoken since January of this year, and she just sent me a text today with a half-ass apology that I know she is only sending to appease our dad and make him happy. It isn't sincere at all. This was her apology. "I apologize for using foul language in front of young ears. I should have been a little more observant of surroundings. I was protecting younger sister when everyone else was ganging up on her. I do apologize for cussing when they could hear me. Was not appropriate. However, I don't apologize for how I approached you with the shaker set. I told you how I felt, and instead of apologizing, you got prideful and continued to hurt my feelings. I didn't cuss at you or attack you. I am willing to be cordial with you around the holidays for the family's sake. Miss Ma'am, you did cuss at me and attack me verbally, and I did apologize multiple times. I haven't responded to the text yet. I guess I also want advice. I know my dad will be upset if we don't get together this year, but I feel it's my job to protect my child and family from any sort of toxicity. I had to grow up in that environment, but I'm breaking the cycle. I also don't want her to think she can treat me, or anyone, the way she did, and get away with it. So, do I accept the apology and move on? Or should I stay firm in my boundary and not be around her for Christmas this year, which I know will affect more than just me? Edit. I can admit I should not have asked her at all. I will take it on the chin that I am the for that. I am more upset at the way she spoke to me throughout the conversation, constantly trying to say things to hurt me, cussing at me, and then not seeing anything wrong with the way she spoke to me after the fact. Then in her not-so-apology saying that I never apologized, when I did apologize many times, and acting like she never did anything wrong. If you think it's okay to talk to someone like that, even if they did hurt your feelings, I don't want you around my son. OP is not the AH for wanting to exchange the gift, but was tactless in asking. However, Amy's extreme reaction, cursing, and refusal to acknowledge OP's multiple apologies make her the bigger AH. OP is justified in maintaining boundaries for her family's well-being. As for scores, I would rate OP 3 out of 5 on the AH scale, and OP gets a 0. Let's now move on to the next story from routine_amount_894. AITA for being upset with my girlfriend because she doesn't want to be physical with me. I, 27M, have been in a relationship with my girlfriend, 27F, for nearly 5 years. We have lived together for over 2 years. I would consider our relationship to be mostly perfect, however, you guessed it. We almost never have sex. This isn't a choice by either of us, and if you're confused, so am I. To add context, we are not religious, or have taken a vow of celibacy or anything of the sort. For me, it's actually quite the opposite. I love sex. I crave it. Not to an unhealthy amount, but I have desires and needs just like any other guy in their late 20s would have. The problem is, she actively refuses to have sex with me. 99% of the time. We have had sex before. In fact, at the start of the relationship, we used to have sex a few times a month. This was completely acceptable and welcome to me, as we didn't see each other that often, and it was never expected of her to put out or anything like that. I just felt it came naturally, and we both enjoyed it like any normal couple would early on. Now, to paint the picture for you, we have had sex 2 times in the year of 2024. A young, attractive, healthy couple with good jobs, degrees, and low stress. What the freak? It's obviously not easy talking to her about this, but I have brought this up to her on multiple occasions by now, expressing my views on sex, that I feel it's important in any long-term relationship. If she communicated to me that she doesn't like sex, or she feels uncomfortable having sex with me, or even that she's not attracted to me, I would at least understand why, and would let us focus on areas of improvement or find alternate solutions. But even after the 5th or 6th conversation/light argument about it, I'm still no closer to understanding why she won't. I've asked her bluntly, "Do you like sex?" "Yes." "Do you find me attractive, or do I need to work on myself?" "No, I find you attractive." "Is there someone else then?" "No, of course not." "Then why don't we have sex?" This is where she shuts down every time. And BTW, I 100% fully trust that she is not cheating on me or anything like that. She's very much a homebody, and when she does leave, is never gone that long. I've looked through her phone, purely out of boredom/curiosity. She's not giving it to me, but she also does not mind, and there's absolutely nothing that makes me wonder. She does not masturbate and has never looked at porn. My only assumption is that her sex drive is just extremely low, while mine is very high. But again, I've asked her this and she goes quiet and gets awkward. I try to make the conversation as low pressure as possible, just two adults in a relationship talking about their relationship. The closest answer I've ever gotten is that she feels she would disappoint me by saying no to me if she doesn't want to, and this creates pressure for her that turns her off. This does not make sense to me. It would if we had sex often, and if I got upset with her when she said no, if she wasn't feeling it that day or whatever, but we literally never have sex. And I never treat her poorly when she refuses my advances, which is every time because I have to initiate. So how can she feel pressure saying no if she says no nearly every single time? To me, that's bullshit. I try not to press it, and instead ask her what would help turn her on, or make her feel less pressure. She's given me a list of things to do / be more romantic. Not to go on a tangent, but I'm extremely gentle with her. Cuddles, neck kisses, back rubs, hugs, all things she loves, and I'm never asking for / expecting anything in return, etc. More foreplay. Okay, sure, I have done that more, which she has also agreed, but has not solved anything. Lubes, so it's not so rough. Done, purchased, no help, etc., etc. I have listened to her and acted upon everything that she says herself may help to no avail. To me, there is a deeper underlying reason that either she is not telling me, or that she's not even aware of, and is as lost as I am. I love this girl, and want to spend the rest of my life with her, but my God, this one aspect of our relationship is a huge hang-up IMO. I can't go the rest of my life sexless, not to be that guy, but I feel the majority of men my age would have absolutely said enough is enough by now. I need a solution, but I'm completely and utterly lost with no direction to turn. I have never experienced anything like this before in a relationship, and what's killing me the most is I just have no answers, no reasons as to why. I know this is a long read, slightly therapeutic for myself, but I truly need help with this. Does anyone have advice, or do you think we are just two very different people when it comes to sex? OP is not the AH for being upset with his girlfriend, but it seems that his lack of empathy for his girlfriend's feelings is making the situation worse. OP should try to understand her girlfriend's issues and can also seek professional help. Let's now move on to the next story from Done with Dumb Assness. AITA for telling the stepdaughter I raised that I'll never forgive her for getting married behind my back and inviting the mother who abandoned her. I was just divorced from a man I married way too young and way too soon. Me, 23F. Him, 20M. We met a few months after he turned 18, and immediately after I turned 21. I had been parentified, and he was basically homeless. It was the perfect trauma bond. The relationship would have naturally dissolved had we not complicated it with marriage. He wanted to be a dad, and I wasn't able to be a mom. He then wanted to be a Chad, and so he was. So, we divorced. I was then 26, and he was almost 24. I'm doing my best to mental math, okay? I'm not exactly sober. I'm trying. Give me credit. There's a whole lot of tea in the split that's irrelevant now, and I'm over it. As was he. He remarried 6 months later. I lied. I'm still not over the fact that he slept with my friend. I am over them all, because on the night of my divorce being final, her boyfriend tried to hook up with me. Now that I was officially single, and I turned him away. Absolutely no one believes my true reason, so I take the higher ground that I was grades above their class. I like that theory better anyway. TBT, dude was reportedly hung, and I didn't want to go for that ride. Like I said, nobody believes me. I didn't want to whistle when I walk without intention, so I didn't frickin' go there. I didn't mess with the taken guy. Whatever. He tried, I declined. Note: that girlfriend of mine who betrayed me is not who my ex got married to. It was a whole different chick, good grief. So, when I met my now husband, me 27, him 26, I was ready to just pick up where I left off. He was a small business owner and a single father. I needed to be needed, and I wanted to be a mom. I began to work for him in building his business, and we dated a year before I met the kids. By that point, his ex had surrendered their kids to their paternal grandparents. His mom, He ended his out-of-state entrepreneurship, and I was along for the ride because he was my business, literally. We got an apartment and took custody of the kids, and I was finally a mom. I became a mom to elementary schoolers that weren't mine, but they were my family unit, and I embraced them with mama bear intensity. Girl was 6, boy was 5. Their mother only came around before the 6-month mark of legal abandonment, or whenever she got a new relationship and needed to parade her well-cared-for offspring in front of the guy as though she had anything to do with that at all. She wouldn't even pay child support. The county dragged feet for years before they had no choice to finally hold her in contempt. But we're talking 10 years of neglect. I was there. For every friggin' suspension, 1 RED, 1 BPD plus ADHD, they were nightmare children, but I did the absolute best I could. I was there for every appointment, every parent-teacher meeting, every recital, every performance, and almost every game. I sank into debilitating health and became unable to work while receiving blood infusions and seeking alternative treatment options to chemotherapy, autoimmune disorders, not cancer. I was literally dying for those kids, and their mother still refused to step up and provide for any of their needs. I became so ill because 4 years I had forgone my own health care for theirs. We had to pay OOP for their monthly mental health care visits and treatments. It was expensive, and their mother didn't care. I put the kids first. Those poor, troubled little life-sucking monsters were my world. I loved them, but I absolutely forced myself to do so. Anyone who understands those conditions won't challenge the struggle. I wasn't even a stepmother. We weren't married. I was all in, and it came with a heavy cost. FF to the eldest being 19 and still living with us, no expenses. I prepared for her a job with my company making $25 per hour, 40/week guaranteed, and overtime opportunities in a seated manufacturing position in 68 degrees climate-controlled environment. That girl was set to equally save and spend $2,000 per month on herself. Instead, she chose to move back to home state with the intention of marrying a guy she met a few months back online and hadn't met in person. She did indeed run away to homeless, unemployed desperation. We flew her back and offered her another free pass, and again she chose to return to home state. Since returning, she has had 4 failed engagements. Not just relationships. Please understand, each one of them was intended to marry, and each claimed fiancé titles. Every firkin' time. He's different. No one has ever treated me this way. He's the one. Immediately followed by, he was abusive and he essayed me and forced miscarriage. Never once a confirmed pregnancy, but always the same firkin' story on repeat. The best guy ever was an awful abuser, and the new guy is God's gift. On repeat. She's only hooked on stupid selfishness and self-gratification, not drugs. She smokes green, but I believe it's medicine, and she need it. She drinks some, but not problematically. No illicit drugs, and as honesty as I've been, I'm sure of this fact. Now she's 21. Then fiancé had a friend they frequented. Frequented friend had a single roommate. Single roommate had a steady life. Steady job and his own place to live. Not with mom and dad. Just as soon as her relationship crumbled, single roommate was there to swoop her up, and he immediately moved her in. Within a month, stepdaughter had caused such a toxic shift in their long-established residency that they were forced out. The lease was conveniently ending, and the roommates absolutely refused to sign a new lease with either of them because of her. So they had to move back to his family towns away, and he lost his job. She was already unemployed. Their relationship began around June of those year. She and I were on good terms. I advised her to not rush things, focus on getting her life on track, no need to rush. They began talking about marriage in August. They knew each other only weeks at that point, and she was some other guy's wife-to-be when they met less than a season ago. She was some other guy's future wife the season prior. I called out every fact while on speakerphone with both of them, though he never held a conversation with me. They weren't ready, and that's fine. There was no rush. I talked to her every day. She showed me her cute nails one day. Nothing else exciting that day. The next day she showed me jewelry his mom gave her and reported that she was going to help them get their own place. All good. Meanwhile, child 2 lives at school in the nearby city and was home for a break. Biomom calls him that night to inform his sister got married the night prior at the home of the family member they are staying with. His whole family was there. Biomom was there. The piece of selfish who abandoned her children was invited to the wedding. The parents who sustained her life and raised her weren't even invited to know about it. If that wasn't a bad enough burn, there's more. The previous week, everyone had gathered together in Podunk County Courthouse that will administer the license but doesn't preform marriage. Everyone showed up for them to have a courthouse wedding the week prior, but they had no officiant, so it had to be postponed. Then they got an officiant and were legally married, blah blah blah. Worthless, selfish Biomom was there for both. And I found out second. Hand from her worthless mouth about it. I talk to my daughter every day, every single day. Not a hint of a word about it. Why? Not for abuse or neglect or overreach, but because they knew we wouldn't support their train wreck of a decision to marry each other after she ruined his life in a slew of doing so serially to half a dozen guys the 2 years before him. I told her I would never forgive her for so blatantly excluding the parents who selflessly raised her, and instead shared that experience with the woman who chose herself over their survival. If left to Biomom, both kids would be dead. She abandoned them and did nothing. But she was invited. Twice, and I wasn't even invited to know. I'm feeling like the entitled, overreaching stepmother who's trying to make the stepdaughter's marriage all about herself, even though I wasn't invited. Just as much as I'm feeling like I literally gave my life for this girl, for nothing. It has me questioning my relationship with my stepson and husband as well. I feel my whole life was just siphoned off, and I'm left to literally struggle with the shell of what I might have otherwise been, had I not given my life for them. And she says just because I married the wrong guy too young, and her dad married the wrong woman too young, doesn't mean that her 3-month relationship turned marriage is going to fail. That's when I ended communication. I'm all done with her. Her father is all done with her. She didn't even call him. At least she called me, he says. To him it makes my situation better. To me, it makes it worse. She's an adult, and she's technically not my kid. So, AITA. TLDR. Stepdaughter excluded the family who raised her from her wedding, twice, but both times invited the mother who abandoned and neglected her. OP isn't an AH for feeling hurt and betrayed, but her reaction might be too extreme. While it's understandable to feel excluded after all she sacrificed, expressing that anger in such a harsh way could alienate the stepdaughter further. OP should deal with her daughter with empathy and love to make the bond between them stronger. Let's now jump on to the next story from Outrageous-Treat 8375. AITA for standing up for my partner and accidentally misgendering their dad. My partner 21GQ, who we'll call Val, and I21M have been having issues with their dad. Here's some context, since this has been going on for months at this point. My partner and I have been together since mid-January, but have been very close friends since way before then. Throughout that time, I've had a few, increasingly dangerous interactions with their dad. Their dad is a trans woman, but still uses dad as her parental term. I used to think I got along all right with Val's dad. Our interactions seemed pleasant enough. There was some awkwardness when I made a joke about Val in front of their dad. I was informed later by Val that their dad said it made her very uncomfortable, to which I responded that I wouldn't do it anymore, and haven't. I honestly don't even remember what the original joke was. My issues with Val's dad, at least from my perspective, really started when I noticed that I had never heard her say anything positive about me. My only interactions with her were her making jokes at my expense, and after a couple of months, they started making me really uncomfortable. I asked her to stop making these jokes while I'm around, and the response I got was that that is just how she is, and that I need to man up and grow a thicker skin. She has made no attempt to stop these jokes. Moving on, as Val and I grew closer, I started noticing the way their dad talked to them. It was always with a form of belittlement, and just unnecessary cruelty. For example, Val has a traumatic past with their birth mother. It's not my place to go into details, but it's genuinely terrible stuff. Their dad refuses to stop comparing Val to their birth mother, despite repeated requests to stop. This all culminated in late June. Val and I both attended the same college, and I was living in our college town, while Val was living about 60 minutes away with their dad. Their household only has one working car, so Val usually had to rely on their dad to get to work. Throughout the summer, their dad called them throughout nearly every desk shift that they had to complain about something, and these calls would last anywhere from 1 to 3 hours. It very clearly, and by their own admission, put a very large amount of stress on Val. One day, it was particularly bad. They had just gotten done with work, and we had made plans to go get ice cream. They told their dad what time they'd be ready to get picked up, to which their dad told, "Never mind," and to just spend the night with me. Okay, fine. She then called back about 20 minutes later, saying that she had changed her mind and that she'd be there soon to pick Val up. All right, whatever. She then proceeded to flip-flop back and forth on this for the next 2 hours. Eventually, while Val was on the phone with her, I had reached my limit. I'm not proud of this part, but I want to give all of the information I can. I very loudly said, "Shut the f*** up! Insert dad's name here." This triggered a response from her, and she asked to be put on the phone. I laid into her. I screamed and cussed and called her names. I'll be including a post she made on Facebook. She made on Facebook about this 6 months later at the end of the post, so that you all can get her perspective too. I was completely in the wrong for how I handled this. I should not have called her names, which included dick, bitch, and bastard, and I should not have screamed at her or hijacked my partner's phone call. Once things had calmed down a bit, and after I had apologized for my outburst, it seemed like we were about to have a productive conversation. I started listing off the things that she had said and done to my partner that I had problems with. For the record, I have witnessed most of these things firsthand. Throughout this, I was calling her by her first name to try and maintain a connection with her. Eventually, she tells me that she doesn't appreciate me calling her by her first name and that she finds it disrespectful. I concede on that and made the worst slip-up I think I've made in my life. I accidentally called her Mr. I immediately realized my mistake and corrected it, but by this point the damage was done. She screamed at me and hung up the phone. Her other child then called me back and said that I need to get therapy immediately for my transmisia/transphobia. I said that I found that notion to be irrational, as I had only misgendered her once and had immediately corrected it. On top of that, I simply don't have the insurance or the money right now to afford therapy. This led to another child screaming at me as well, and they both ganged up on me. This culminated in Val's dad mimicking my voice and words as I attempted to apologize for the misgendering. I hung up the phone at that point. I made no attempts to contact her between that call and the next incident. A few days after, Val, a mutual friend of ours, and myself were on our way to a pride festival. I grew up in Indiana, where those sorts of things aren't that common, so I was excited to finally be able to attend one. We ate lunch at a restaurant, and Val's dad had planned with them to pick up some of Val's things from them outside this restaurant. This is when the second incident occurred. I was standing back, away from the drop-off, on my phone so as to not incite any further issues. At this point, Val's dad parked her car in the middle of the street, got out, and came up to me. I was in the middle of a small fenced area with one exit. She proceeded to lean down, she's a few inches taller than me, about 1 to 2 inches from my face, and start screaming at me about what a coward I was for hanging up on her. She was between me and the exit. I was stunned by this behavior, only telling her to get away from me. This caused my partner to have a complete panic attack. When she didn't back off, I said that I would call the police if she didn't. She then made a comment about filming me and went back to her car to get her phone. At this point, mutual friend and I started walking away, trying to put distance between ourselves and her. She attempted to chase us down the street while screaming how we're not allies and that hateful people like us shouldn't be at Pride. We kept walking, and only after about 1.5 city blocks did she give up and leave. I'll admit, I was scared at this point. I had no clue what she was going to do. A couple of weeks later, she started demanding an apology from me and said that if I didn't give it to her by the end of the week, that she'd kick Val out, leaving them homeless. I'm not in a position where I can take Val in, so I sucked up my pride and apologized. She had wanted it to be in person, but I made it clear that after the incident at Pride that I would not see her in person. So, it was done over the phone. She had sent my partner and I a few articles about how to apologize correctly. Since my previous apology had not been enough for her, I made sure to hit every point in the articles during our phone call. I even said I would look into therapy about my trans hatred, which I did. I ultimately decided that it wasn't for me, since I didn't have the money and didn't think I needed it over one slip-up. She seemed to accept it and said that she wasn't going to kick Val out. I thought it was finally done after that. My goal for the next 2 to 3 months was to simply not make things worse. I did not speak to her a single time during this period, August to October. I held my tongue whenever my partner was in the phone with her, dying inside as I continued to listen to her berate Val. Near the end of October, she started demanding that I meet with her in person. All of this was through Val, since I have her blocked on all social media. She demanded to speak with me, and I relented so that I could tell her that under no circumstances was I meeting her in person. This turned into another, multiple hours-long call of her berating me, misgendering me, and misgendering Val. The gist of it can be summed up by something she said during this call. I had asked how we could find a solution and move forward, to which she replied, "I don't want a solution. I want to hurt you and keep on hurting you." I was done after that, and have not spoken to her since. Since then, she has told my partner that she would kick them out if they didn't break up with me. She has continued the same behavior with Val that pissed me off in the first place, and has continued to take zero accountability for her actions. The most recent thing was a Facebook post that she made. I've copied it here. This is especially for strong trans allies and my trans siblings to answer. Context. One of my kids has a history of talking trash about me behind my back. Actually, had been doing it since middle school. They refined their trash me sessions to compel their friends to think about verbally assaulting me in high school to actually verbally assaulting me when they got to college. In one of those verbal assaults, their partner started by using misogynistic language, famine slurs, but also addressed me with masculine terms. Trans women will know what I'm talking about, ways people, especially men, will talk to men, but not women. I asked repeatedly to stop both. He refused to acknowledge that he was doing it. Then he moved to using masculine slurs, bagatelle, and so on. I asked him to stop that as well, and he refused. He also really pounded home the overuse of my name. Insert name here in every point, if not every sentence. He also switched subjects rapidly, not allowing me to respond to anything. I asked him to have one subject at a time. He refused. I asked him to stop overusing my name. He refused until I told him we're not friends, and I'm not inclined to have him address me in the familiar. Mind you, he's screaming at me the entire time. He's clearly out to hurt, over the phone because he's gutless, then demands to know what he should call me. I told him not to refer to me at all. Then he did it. He referred to me as Mr. Insert Name here. He claims it was a mistake, but he was filled with malice and never knew me as anything other than a woman. After that, I lost it as my child was making excuses for him. I screamed and threw my phone on a bed. Other child, transmasc at this point, came to find out what happened. Once finding out, Z laid into them both. He instantly started laying into Z using very feminine-laden language. Z told him to stop speaking to Z like Z was a woman, and my other child defended him by saying that words don't have gender. Later said the same to me, until he called Z hysterical. My child and this douche nozzle stated, "This is a word that's applied equally to men and women. Let's, of course, forget it means of the womb." Then Z loses their too. More background. This guy wasn't sure if Z was cis, so started asking my other child what Z was assigned at birth. then wanted the whole lowdown on Z's gender identity journey. Which my other kid, I guess, told them everything. Which is really weird. Why is it okay to discuss genitalia of trans people and only trans people? 50 years mostly presenting cis, not once did talking about people's genitalia really ever happen. It's unacceptable. However, the supplied rationale for why this is okay is because he'd never met a trans person in nowhere, Indiana. He was just curious. Which obviously makes it all okay, right? To me, they're both transmissic, misogynistic, and to me, my child is worse. They know better. They would eat themselves for lunch if they heard any of that as an outside party. But seriously, I want outside takes on this. If you're not well versed in this, please don't try to speak to what you don't know. To clarify a few things, she makes the claim that Val had manipulated me into confronting her. This is not true. I had overheard their phone calls, which were usually on speaker, and read their texts. I came to these conclusions about her myself. She says, in one of these verbal assaults. The incident in June and the one at the end of October were the only two that Val or I can recall. The second one wasn't even instigated by me, and I made a point during that one to not raise my voice or name call. I never called her other child hysterical. I said that I found the idea of going to therapy over a single slip-up to be irrational. The gendered language she's referring to are the expletives I used during the initial stages of the call. I do understand that these words have had gendered connotations in the past, and still do for many people. They don't for me. When I use them indiscriminately. Regarding my questions about her other child's biology, I am still very new to my experiences with the LGBTQ+ community, so I'm still learning what's appropriate to ask and what's not. I try not to repeat mistakes. The other child had been very open that Z was not cis, and I, out of genuine curiosity and naivete, asked my partner what Z's was. As soon as I was made aware that this was an issue, I apologized and never brought it up again. I genuinely have no clue what she's talking about when she says I laid into Z with using very feminine language. The only time I talked to Z during that phone call was when I was trying to apologize for misgendering Val's dad. This is my biggest issue. Nowhere does she take any accountability or acknowledge the things she's done. It is the most one-sided takedown I've ever seen. At this point, I have apologized to her on at least 2 separate occasions, and have made no attempts, outside of that one call in October, to interact with her. When is she going to acknowledge her part? I believe I've acknowledged mine. She even, during the October call, said that I instigated her invasion of my personal space at Pride by not greeting her when she pulled up. She has since tried to deny that it even happened. Val and I genuinely don't know what to do. It's been 6 months. We're so tired of this. Every attempt to move forward has been met with resistance, and honestly, what I've said is just the tip of the iceberg. We didn't want to make a public post about it, but decided to after her Facebook post, which was posted earlier today. So, tell me Reddit. AITA. TLDR. My partner's dad is emotionally and verbally abusive to them, and I went off on her about it. During this, I accidentally misgendered her once. Despite multiple apologies, she has continued to drag this out, culminating in her threatening to sell my partner's possessions and stalk us if we don't meet her demands. AITA. OP is not the AH. He defended his partner against an abusive, transphobic parent, which was justified. Apologizing for a slip-up doesn't excuse the parent's harmful behavior, and OP took a stand to protect his partner's well-being. As for scores, I would rate OP 0 out of 5 on the AH scale. What do the Mac Reddit fans think? Is the OP an AH or not? Let me know in the comment section below. If you like the stories I brought you, just hit the like button, share them as much as you can, and don't forget to subscribe to Mac Reddit for a daily dose. Bye-bye. See you tomorrow with some more spicy fries.